My grandmother gave me this book for my birthday, for my 34th birthday. It's called The Four Signs of a Dynamic Catholic: How Engaging 1% of Catholics Could Change the World. Now, in here, it talks about generosity. Generosity is at the heart of the Christian life, just as it is at the heart of the gospel. For it is often through our generosity that we are able to bring the love of God to life for others in very real and tangible ways. God is by his very nature generous. God wants to convince us of his generosity, and in turn wants us to live generous lives. But the world doesn't see it that way. Not surprisingly, again, we stumble here upon the great divide between the way of life today's culture proposes that the life God invites us to live. While God is inviting us to a joyful life, a selfless generosity, the world is trying to seduce us into an all-encompassing selfishness. Consider some of the differences. God invites us to a life of gratuity while the world fosters discontent. God proposed trust, the world arouses fear. God promotes giving, the world promotes getting. God invites us to cooperate with his providence while the world rallies behind self-determinism. God appoints us in stewardship while the world touts ownership. The world encourages entitlement when in reality everything is a gift from God. God invites us to look out for our neighbor. The world tells us to look out for ourselves. God operates from abundance, the world from a place of scarcity. God created us out of generosity to live generous lives. The world encourages us to live a small, selfish life. See, the only religion that I believe is non-secular is the Bible. Not secular, not worldly. Free will. And in that situation, it says, he that soweth by the flesh, which means worldly, secular, reaps corruption. But he that soweth by the Spirit reaps life everlasting. See, we have so much food in this world, and there's like 20 billion people starving. If you think you have it bad, think if you're that little African child starving and dying. That's bad. So be grateful for what you have. It says in the Bible, don't talk about your good deeds to fellow man, like boast and proud about it, like, oh, I did this good thing just to look good. You don't talk about it, for your gifts are your treasures in heaven. It's between you and God. But I'm going to explain to you about tithing. I think somewhere in the Bible, I don't know what percent it actually is, but it says give 10% to the church. Well, I want you to understand the church in a building is just a gathering. You know, sometimes you see a preacher driving a Humvee or whatever, but the real church is in the heart and that generosity. Now, let me tell you about a true tithes. Tithes that I actually have given, which I shouldn't be doing because in the Bible it says don't boast about it. It's between you and God. But I was on a bridge, and this fisherman that lived on the bridge, on the fishing bridge, had a little tarp that he slept under, and I folded up $10 in my hand, and I shook his hand. It was my last $10, and I just shook his hand. And he looked in his hand. And he said, "Hey, you want to buy my fish, or you want some fish?" I said, "No, just give me next time." I went to that bridge a little while later, within the same week or within a couple weeks later. I'm not exactly all the way sure. Maybe a month later. But that same guy had a radio, looked like from the dollar store maybe or whatever. But I'm thinking that's where that $10 went. So he can listen to the weather or do whatever, which is a good thing. Another time, I only had $5 in my pocket, and I was walking. I used to have to walk 3 or 4 miles each way to my job. And on my way walking, there was a guy at the highway that said, "We'll work for food," or something like that. And I gave him my last $5. And the guy said, "Thank you, I can get a value meal with it." And I said, "No problem, man, don't worry about it." I've been doing stuff like this my whole life. Been generous, giving bus tickets, or if I see someone on the street, give them $1 or give them food or whatnot. That is a true tithe. And that shows generosity. And if you notice, these homeless people, when you give them something, they say, "God bless you," because they truly understand. Now, if you're driving out by that homeless person and think you're better than them, you don't know what hardship got them in life. You don't know what happened to them and stuff like that. And my book Oxy, I got a poem called Sam. So, hold on one second. Let me find it. Now, Sam, this is a poem I wrote. Will work for food. Who is that dude? Where has he seen last? What about his past? You'll label him an outcast. You see him every morning on the freeway out by the bay. Makes you wonder, where does he find his feet to lay? How does he survive day by day? If life, why doesn't he quit? How does he put up with that shit? To be inside his mind, someone of the very kind, what does he do in his time? If he steals to eat, do you consider it a crime? Is he happy or sad? How did he get there? Was it because of his dad or his boss that made him mad? Makes me think, to be in my shoes, I should be glad. I walked to that guy that you labeled before, try to get right to his core. Don't worry, his mom wasn't a whore. But yes, many times his heart was a tour. By all means, his life wasn't to adore. Told me what it's like to be very poor. Next time you see him on the streets, ask him, you might learn more. And please, a meal that is warm so he can move on. Now, we can actually judge these people, but if it's the Sams of the world or the people, but you know what? If shit ever hit the fan, you know who you'd go to? A homeless person, because they knew how to survive. They know how to survive on the streets. They know how to continue living without having the materialistic secular world. And if you notice, when you give them stuff, they say God bless you, because they consider it a blessing. Now, all the Sams out there, if you think you're better than them, think about that. They probably went through some life story. You don't know their life story. They could have worked for 30 years and lost their pension and became homeless. If you watch the movie Duck, which is on my pictures on my webpage, www.facebook.com/St. St. Peter, Peter, Delevante, Delevante. If you watch the movie Duck, you can see a circumstance of how one person's life has become to a homeless situation. But if shit hit the fan, these people are the ones that know how to survive because they had to. So a true tithe, think about it. It's generosity. It's helping people out in bad situations. It's getting people to where they need to go. You know, if it's considered getting a homeless man a room and an outfit and some hygiene stuff from the dollar store and an outfit from the dollar store so they can go out and look for a job, helping them give them a little push start. We need humanitarian purposes. I think there's like 20 billion people starving in the world, and we have enough food in the world to feed everybody. Now, if you think about it, we have all this waste, and this waste could actually go to use. Like Dunkin' Donuts, you actually see them, they got extra donuts. You know, homeless people go to the library to use the free internet or read the newspaper. You know, why not have a pot of coffee there and some leftover donuts where an employee can go on their way to work to pick up the donuts and put them there. And if they run out, they run out, but at least some people got fed. You know, just small things, just little things can make such the biggest difference. So many good deeds that are done, and it doesn't hurt to do one good deed a day. You know, there's nothing more priceless than actually helping somebody that's not able to pay you back. And always know, people are out there starving. And like I said before, there's that Leviticus, you have an abundance of crop, you have a shitload of donuts at Dunkin' Donuts, but you have all these left over the next day and you just throw it away. Why not bring them to the library? You know, or why not just come up with simple ideas? Simple ideas, just something like you buy 20 bottled waters and sell them for 25 cents or something at the store. Just different things. There's so many different things that can be done to actually have solutions to the problems of society. Now, if you listen to Tupac, Brenda's Got a Baby, it affects the community, what she went through. That's her story. But watch the movie Doc. The movie Duck will explain. I'll explain to you what happened. He lived by a park and he buried his son at that park. And then his wife was dying in the apartment that he was in. He had to pay all the medical bills, so he had to lose the place where he was living because of that. He became Sam. But he found a lonely duck and he took it with him. And he walked across the United States to go to the beach. He didn't know much about being homeless, but because of his wife's medical bills, he was a homeless man. And they judged that Sam. They judged him at a house party. He was at a house party and he was walking around having a good time. And they're like, "Oh, the dude's a bum. The dude's a bum. Get him the hell out of here." When all actuality, you know what? You can become a bum tomorrow. Well, not I don't want to say bum, a homeless person. And guess what? Guess who else was homeless? Jesus. Jesus was homeless when he was born. So the people that we frown upon, actually, you might actually need them in the long run. Let's say something happens. I'm not saying, prepare for the worst or hope for the best. Let's say that, you need to be in a situation where you go homeless. Let's just say you happen to go homeless tomorrow because you worked your 10 years, you lost your pension, you have no money, you're homeless. You became Sam. And some people, in all actuality, that are in economic upliftings or anything like that, they kind of frown upon those people. Like, oh, look at that piece of shit. Look at that homeless person. And you don't know their story. In all actuality, anybody can become Sam. So if there's someone on the streets, like one time, there was a guy that was a little skittish. He kind of scared me away because I was on my bike. And I tried to give him food, and he jumped back, and then I jumped back and rode off on my bike. I saw him later on, and I tried to give him money, and he hid from me. He hid his face. And then I saw him later on in another situation, and it seemed like he was tormented in the mind. And that's what Satan does. He'll torment your mind. And in his situation, you don't know what it was. And so, in all actuality, be safe in the situation. Make sure you're not going to get hurt or anything, but do something. You can bring the donuts to the library the next day. Dunkin' Donuts has so much leftover stuff. Why not stop by one and bring it to a library where the homeless people, just the simplest things. It doesn't hurt to do good things. It might actually help you sleep better at night. And to those people that are really rich, it might make them feel better because they're doing something with their money. You can't spend all that money, so you might as well do something with it. Do something right with it. I'm not saying give it all away, but do something, Sam, watch the movie Duck. It's on my Facebook page under Kenneth Lincoln Delevante, Delevante the third. And if you look at my pictures, you'll see that movie Duck. It's an old guy looking down at a duck. And I'm going to tell you something. My grandpa was my hero. He never lied. He was a very generous person. He spent his volunteer time doing people's taxes at the Fort Pierce Library. He did a lot for people. He tried to help people read, I think. And he's the one that told me about that movie Duck. And this movie Duck just popped in my head when I was talking about, that piece of shit, Sam. Because in all actuality, just because you become homeless, it doesn't make you a worse person. If you're homeless and someone sees them and say, oh, he's a piece of shit, get a job. Well, he probably had a job. And he probably became mentally disabled or something, lost his job, and became in a bad situation. Everybody's situation is different. You never know. So if you look at the movie Duck, he goes to the party, they kick him out, but they don't realize his wife was like dying of cancer. And he was just trying to travel to California to drop his wife, I think, if I remember correctly, drop his wife's arms into the ocean in California. He lost his place to stay because he put all his money in medical bills. And he became Sam. But the park where he was living by, they turned it into like a dumping site. So the place where he buried his son became a wasteland. So in all actuality, you never know. Situations can always change. So instead of looking down at somebody and frowning, pick them up. Pick them up. And you know what? Those people that you say are pieces of shit or whatever, they're probably smarter than you were or are. They're probably smarter. They know how to survive. And then when you say they're a piece of shit, the next thing you know, you're in a 1940, whatever the Black Tuesday or Black Friday, whatever it's called, whenever the Depression hit. If the Depression hits, guess what? You're going to be Sam. So in all actuality, you know what you're going to do? You're going to go to Sam when that Black Friday hits or whatever happens. Not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that's a coincidence. That's a situation that can happen. So in all actuality, think about it. When you see that homeless person, think Sam. Think Duck. Watch the movie Duck. Watch it. It's a really good motive. It's a really good situation where it has you understand how easily it is that life can actually trample upon you. So that's why it is good to be generous. And you don't have to give away everything you have. But if you do just a little something every day, what's wrong with that? You know? Some people don't have it, some people can't do it. I understand that. But if you have it, you can do it. You know? Why not? A true tithe is in the heart. Jesus was generous. He was generous with his first miracle. I think his first miracle is that he turned water into wine. When he turned water into wine, he was being generous. It wasn't a need. He was just being generous. And the Gospels teach about being generous. That's what they teach. The bottom line. And just remember, you can be Sam, and you know what? And then you can be that person and be like, oh my God, what a piece of shit, get a job. But you really don't know the situation. And you know what? That doesn't help them either, because if they're going through mental struggles of just surviving, they hear that, they're going to be like, man, you have no clue. And you're just going to hurt them. So, what can you do? What can you do? What can you do? What can you do? The poet, Kenneth Delevante III. Look me up on Facebook. I'm here to teach, educate. If you don't agree with my opinions, whatever, I'm just here to make a difference in the way that I can. And if it works, then it works. That's my plan. I serve a purpose. I don't purposely serve. And with God, you got to serve the purpose with God. You don't have to purposely serve. Galatians 6. Carry the burdens of others and fulfill the law of Christ. You know, when Christ said in Leviticus, I think it was Christ that said in Leviticus that you have an abundance of crop, leave behind those walking through the fields for the poor to pick from it to eat. He was probably that homeless man that was walking through the field to say, hey, look, you got an abundance of crop. We need something here. We need something. We need humanitarianism. We need a purpose. We need people to be helped. We need a lot of stuff in this world. We can all make a difference. We can all have a change. We need to change the way it goes. The selfishness, the greediness, the self-pride, all the stuff that people actually go through. Because you know what? It's all materials. And in materials, you can't take it with you. It's secular. It's worldly. He that soweth by the flesh reap corruption. He that soweth by the flesh, worldly, selfishness, greed, all that stuff, he that soweth by the flesh reap corruption. He that soweth by the Spirit reap life everlasting. Now, we may judge what people wear. Maybe they can't afford good clothes. We may judge how people see each other, how we actually look at each other and say, oh, he's just a piece of shit. Well, you're calling a homeless man a piece of shit? you're calling Jesus a piece of shit. You're calling your Lord, your Savior, a piece of shit because he was born homeless. And he was probably homeless half his time traveling through. And people probably gave him shelter. People probably helped him out. And I know people that have been helped out by Christian people. And that's just the way it works. Which way to go, sometimes you never know. And let me see if I can find it. I just read a little bit of this. Is in Oxy, and it says, hold on one second, let me find it. See if I can find it. Oh man. Bear with me just 1 minute. Okay, well, I can't find it right now. But Sam, Doc, Jesus. And you know what? Guess what? Jesus was probably Sam. In all actuality, if everybody becomes a Sam, guess what? The Great Depression happens again, and you're a Sam, you're going to go to another Sam. So you can go from, oh my God, what a piece of shit, get a job, to, hi, my name's Sam. Nice to meet you, Sam. The poet, aka the poet, Kenneth Delevante III.